Vertical angles and linear pairs. We're going to start with vertical angles. Vertical angles are formed by two lines that intersect to create an X shape. You see this in our picture. See how the lines have created an X shape? And notice how I've marked angle 1 and angle 3. Those two angles are in what we call a vertical angle position, but not because they go up and down, but it's because of where they are in the X shape. And if you could imagine just folding it over along this line right here, angle 3 would be exactly the same size and shape as angle 1. Hence, the markings I put on are indicating, based on geometry, that those two angles are congruent. And congruent means same size and shape. This symbol right here is the shorthand symbol we use in geometry for the concept of congruent. It's really our way of saying a picture or figure is equal to another picture or figure, equal in size and shape. Now, if angle 1 and 3 are called vertical angles and are equal in their size and shape, then what do you think is going to happen between angle 4, well, these arcs are not playing very nicely, there we go, and angle 2? Well, they're going to be vertical also. Even though they run side to side, they're still called vertical angles. And we could write angle 4 is congruent to angle 2. Just like we could have said angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Now, when you were in algebra, we used the concept of equal between numbers or between variables. So we can also use an equal sign in geometry. We could say the measure of angle 4 equals the measure of angle 2. Or we could say the measure of angle 3 equals the measure of angle 1. So vertical angles are created by an X shape, and they will always be equal. And you better keep these in your back pocket because they make everything so much easier in geometry. Now, linear pairs are kind of the way they sound. I want you to notice in the word linear, do you see the word line? In this picture down here, do you see this line that is formed by these two angles being shoved together? Well, that's part of the reason they're named the way they are. And pair implies that you're going to have two angles. And adjacent is one of our vocab words, and that means side by side. And of course, supplementary, every time you see this word in a word problem in geometry, you should just jot down 180 degrees just to keep it fresh in your mind. Now, these two angles are adjacent and supplementary, which means they're forming this line because they're connected. And then something else I want you to notice is, see that? That's like a half circle. And half circles always measure 180 degrees. So these two angles will always add up to 180 degrees. So the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2, there we go, equals 180 degrees. I want you to notice in the picture how there's this, what I call a skinny angle. And then over here, you have what is a wider angle. Well, a lot of times in geometry, when you have a wide plus a skinny, if the picture is set up like this, it's always going to be 180 degrees. And we're going to see this idea as we explore other concepts. All right, now in this picture we have two lines that are intersecting to make an X shape. But I want you to notice the pink and the yellow angles that I've kind of spray painted on this picture. If you were to look at this pink angle right here, would you call it skinny or wide? Me? I would call it a wide angle. Likewise, I would call this one a wide angle. And if you were paying attention to what I said earlier, angle 2 is vertical with angle 4. That means they're congruent, so if one's wide, the other's wide. And when I'm looking at angle 1, this yellow spray-painted angle, I would call this one skinny. And I would call angle 3 skinny. Now when I'm looking at this picture, I have both concepts that have been discussed in this brief video going on at the same time. So there are several equations I can write. One of them is the measure of angle 2 equals the measure of angle 4. Another equation is going to be the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 equals 180 degrees. Now these are totally different equation formats. And I want you to look at this. If I take angle 2, the pink one, and I'm looking at its measure, and then I keep going and add angle 3 to it, doesn't it make 180 degrees? It makes a half a circle. It should. And then if I'm looking at angle 2, and I'm comparing it to angle 4, they're equal. So in this one picture, I can write way more than just these two equations. I could write the measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 3, or I could maybe write the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180 degrees. Or couldn't I also write the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 4 equals 180 degrees? Let's see. Is there a combination that I haven't used yet? I've used 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4. What about this one? The measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 4 equals 180 degrees. So there are two things I want you to notice. Look at how many equations we could write out of this one simple picture that was created by two lines making an X shape. And then I want you to notice the formats of the two different kinds of equations that we can write. These two that I've just circled, technically, are in a format of piece equals piece. And I want you to notice it's wide and wide, or skinny and skinny. They're equal. It wouldn't make sense that wide would equal skinny in anything in life. Then if you'll notice the other equations that came out of this simple picture that was formed by two lines making that X shape, they are in the format of piece plus piece equals the whole thing, or the whole big angle. So take a look at this, absorb this, and then practice some examples and see how you do with this before you go on to practice.